Hello everybody, welcome to this instruction video. In this video I'd like to show you part 2 of the Scheepjes Crochet Along 2017 Hygge. Hygge has been designed by Kirsten from Hygge CAL. To participate in this crochet along you need the Scheepjes kit for this project, which contains stone washed yarn and katona yarn. Depending on which colorway you have, you'll have different colors available to you. I have the rainbow kit, which has a lot of beautiful and bright colors. For this week we're going to be doing different things. We're going to be working a background of double crochet stitches. For this background we're using a 4.5mm crochet hook, maybe slightly larger than you're used to for the stone washed. We're going to be making flat surface stitches. This is a separator between what we've done before and what we're doing this week. And we're going to be making cross stitches. So this is embroidery work, for which you'll of course be needing the needle that's in your kit. I'll show you all three of these elements, so the double crochet, the separator and the embroidery. You can jump to the point in the video that you want to watch, so I'll also put markers at the bottom of this video so you can easily jump. Nonetheless, I'll take you step by step through everything that we're doing this week. I hope it's a useful video for you. Thank you for watching. I'm going to start the crochet part for this week by removing the stitch marker. I'm going to hang on to that because you're going to need it later on again. Hook up your loop. Chain 1, that's to turn. If you've already done that chain 1 last week, then don't do 2, of course, you only need 1 of those. And now we're going to work a double crochet on every stitch. So this is the first stitch here, again that very first stitch. It's your first double crochet, second, etc. You're going to work 59 again. And this is row 1 for this week. But this is of course also row 24 if you continue from last week. So it kind of depends on how you're counting, or whichever you prefer. The pattern does indicate both, so you can keep track of your rows. I'm going to refer to this as row number 1 for this week's pattern. I'm going to work a double crochet on every stitch. And when I get to the end of the row, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just weave in a thread through this row so that I know where it is later on. Because what we're going to be doing is we're going to be doing surface crochet on this, and we're going to be doing embroidery, and that way I know which row is which, that I don't get confused with my spacings and all those type of things. So that's purely to help me count. If you don't want to do that, that's perfectly fine. It's just a tip. So I'm going to continue. Do a double crochet on every stitch till to the end of the row. I'm at the end of row 1 of this part, and now I want to work a contrast thread through my work. The reason I'm doing this is that I know where row 1 is, because we're going to be doing 24 more rows of double crochets, and then I don't know which is which anymore. I'm just going to quickly open up this loop so that nothing happens to it while I'm doing something else. What we're going to be doing is going to be weaving a contrast thread through the stitches of row 1. So I've got an embroidery needle here, and I've got some katona thread. Actually got a little bit too much, but okay. So I've taken yellow because it's a nice contrasting color and it's easy to spot. So that's the only reason that I took yellow. And what we're going to be doing is going to be weaving this through the stitches of row 1. So let me just zoom in a little bit that you can see a little bit better what I'm doing. Now, these are the first stitches that we just worked. So what I'm going to be doing is going to take my needle and just work through the actual stitches, so through the posts, the body of the stitches. I'm going to just work the thread through that. And what you can see happening is you can see exactly where row 1 is. Now, if you don't want to do this, it's too much fuss, or you feel comfortable counting, perfect, then just skip this step. This is purely a tip to help you, because at a certain point you're going to have a lot of rows, and then you're really going to have to come back and count them. And we're going to be doing this a few times. that we're going to be marking rows in this project. So what I'm going to be doing is, when we finish part 2, I'm going to pull this out. As you can see, it's very easy to just pull through. Then I'm going to pull this out and keep this thread for another part, when we're again going to have to be marking stitches, or rows actually, because you're marking the row. I'm just going to continue till I'm to the end of the row. And what's also important is I'm going through the body and leaving the top of the stitches free, because of course I need those loops to work row 2. So I'm going to continue, work the entire thread through, and then I can continue to crochet again. When you're finished, your work looks like this. You can see here all the threads through. Don't worry that it bobbles a little bit, it doesn't matter. I'm going to pick up the loop again. That is this one. I'm going to pick it up on my hook again, and then we can start row 2. With the loop on my hook again, chain 1 if you haven't already done so. That's just to turn, of course, does not count as a stitch. And then on the first stitch, going to do the first double crochet. So if you can't see, just pull your work open. You see that first little stitch there, very first one, work a double crochet. And in the next one also. You have to work a double crochet on each and every stitch. That's going to be 59 on this row. When you get to the end of the row, chain 1, turn, and then come back and work again 59 double crochets. You're going to continue doing that until you've worked 24 rows in total. We're now on row 2, so it's going to be quite a few more rows to go. I'm also going to be doing a jump in the video at this point, so I'm going to continue work those 24 rows, and then I'll see you again when we can do the embellishments on the front of our project. Those are cross stitches that we're going to be making, as well as surface slip stitches. So continue, work a double crochet on every stitch for in total 24 rows. When you've done 24 rows, this is what your work looks like. I'm just going to hook up a stitch marker to that last stitch so that nothing happens to it. There we go. And now we're ready to start the embellishments. We're going to do surface crochet and we're going to do embroidery. Just to maybe a tip to help you count, to double check that you've got the correct number of rows. You'll see here that every 2 rows forms a bit of a ridge, a bump, if you will. And these help you to count. Remember, your first one is the one that I have here in the yellow, so that's 1. Then I can count 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22. So then this last row here is number 23, and that first one here is number 24. It's the one that I have the thread in. So that's just to help you count. And now we're ready to start the surface crochet. We're going to do surface slip stitches. We're going to do that using the Katona yarn that's in your kit. Just double check the pattern, exactly which color you need for this part. A few words on hook sizes. If you tend to be rather tight in your crochet stitches, you might want to go up a hook size relative to what we've already worked. If you've got an even tension, you might want to stick to the 4.5, but if you're on the other half, something that has rather loose tension, you might want to go a hook size smaller, so to a 4mm hook. So kind of considering what your personal tension is, you might want to change your hook size for these stitches that we're going to be doing. So on here we're going to make a so-called separator with surface slip stitches. Look at your work if you think it's pulling tight, so if your work is a bit pulling tight, go up a hook size. If it's very loose and uneven, you might actually want to consider coming down a hook size. So make your first one, then see how it is, and maybe just do it again if you're not completely happy. To make the separator, we're going to have to start at the right position and then start doing diagonals. I'm going to start in row 5. Now we've marked row 1 here, that's the yellow. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So these rows of stitches, that's row number 5. Now we want to move between stitch 3 and stitch 4. On row 5, that's stitch 1, that's 2, that's 3, and that's 4. So you're going to start between stitch 3 and 4. So I'm just going to punch my needle in there. That's our starting point. So row 5 between stitches 3 and 4. Okay. Now the katana thread, you're going to hold this to the back of your work, going to pick up a loop, and then we're going to work slip stitches where the thread stays to the back. Now this is slightly tricky, especially the first few stitches. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to make a really long beginning tail. The reason is that I don't accidentally pull everything out because my beginning tail is too short. So I'm going to be between stitches 3 and 4 there on row 5 in there. Pick my thread up from the back and bring it to the front. And I'm leaving this long tail here so that if I accidentally do things like this, that I don't pull everything out. Because this really does happen, especially those first few stitches. Now comes a bit of a tricky part. So you've got a piece of fabric here. I'm just going to roll that over a little bit so that I've got more room to keep the tension on my yarn to the back. And sometimes I just have the feeling that my hands are too small for some of this. We're going to come down and work a diagonal. Now don't worry that your first loop here is so big. You're going to pull this tight with your initial tail. We're going to come down one row and move one stitch position. If you're right-handed, you're going to move to the left. If you're left-handed, you're going to move to the right. So come down and move one stitch. Put in your crochet hook, then pick up your thread from the back, bring it to the front and move it through the loop that's on your hook. That's your first slip stitch made. Do that again. Come one down and move one position across. Pick up your loop from the back and pull this through the loop that's on your hook. And I found my diagonal coming down, I find them harder than my diagonals going up. But okay. Again, one stitch down, one stitch to the side. Pick up your loop from the back and pull through the loop on your hook. 3 slip stitches made. I'm going to do number 4, and number 4 should bring you to the row that's marked, should bring you to row number 1. So one down, one across, pick up your yarn and work that slip stitch. This is your first diagonal leg. We're now going to come back up. Your first leg has 4 loops. You see 1, 2, 3, 4. Going up, we're going to do 5 loops, but we're going to do exactly the same, but in opposite direction. So going up 1 stitch, and 1 stitch. In my case, to the left. If you're right-handed, if you're left-handed, to the right, and so up and to the side. Punch in your hook. Pick up a loop from the back and pull through the loop on your hook. Again, 1 up, 1 to the side, pick up your yarn and pull through. And to find that yarn to the back, I am just literally just grasping my hook somewhere, and then I always seem to just get a hold of it, but that is maybe a little bit more luck than anything else. So if you're having trouble finding your yarn to the back, just peep to the back and say, oh, there's my yarn. Then hook it on and bring it to the front and pull through. I now have 1, 2, 3, 4 loops, so I need to do one more. So again, to the top, one across. And there we go. You'll notice, if I just open up, that you're now one row higher than you were when you started. Because we're now on to row 6. You can see this loop here. Let's see, this loop here is the same height as that. That's row 5. Now we're one row higher. So don't worry, that's correct. Don't stress if you think, oh, this is wrong. No, this is fine. Now we can start the journey downward again. I'm going to do exactly the same. Just going to roll this a little bit. One row down, one stitch across. Pick up your yarn, pull through the loop on your hook, so you're making slip stitches. One down, one across. Pick up your yarn and pull through the loop on your hook. And give these slip stitches a little room. If you notice that they're too tight, go up a hook size. If you feel they're too loose and wobbly, go down a hook size. Again, one row down, one stitch across. And again, one row down, one stitch across. And now you're again going to have to do 5 of these. So I've now done 4. One down, one across. And this point you should again be at row number 1. There you go. The marked rows. You see I've got that yellow thread there. And this point is exactly the same as that point there. So now we're going to go back up again and repeat this bit here. I'm going to repeat that and repeat that a few more times, and on your last bit you're going to work the last series of slip stitches coming back up. I'll show you that last bit also. So this diagonal going up and coming down, so one zigzag consists of 10 loops, 5 upwards and 5 downwards. Do this zigzag a few more times, and then I'll see you here just for the last bit of the fabric. I'm almost to the end of the first zigzag. You can see what I've worked so far. We started here, then we came down with 4 loops, then went up with 5, down with 5, up 5, down 5, and I've done a few of these, and now I'm at the top, and I'm going to come back down for the last few stitches. And because it's the last one, you're only going to do 4 loops. Let me just find my thread here to the back again. And we're going to do exactly the same as we've done before. So this is coming down, that's down 1 and to the side 1 position, down to the side, hook in, pick up the thread, pull through. Next stitch down to the side. That's 2, the third one down to the side. Hook up and pull through. Then the last one again down and to the side and pull through. There we go, the loop on your hook. You've now done 4 slip stitches and you've got a loop on your hook. At this point you can cut the thread, so I'm just going to do that. Just cut the thread, and I'm going to bring this to the front, and this thread, what I'm going to do, I want it to the back. I'm just going to do it with a needle so that you see exactly what I'm doing, but once you get the hang of this you can do it with the hook also. What I'm going to do is in the stitch where I pulled up this loop, I'm going to push it, bring it back in, so it's in the same position where it came from, and then we're going to fasten this loop in that position. So be sure not to go through the loop, don't do that, So be sure you're staying clear of your loop, this last loop here. Just go into that same position and just pull the yarn to the back. And what you see is then this is secured here, and you can work this tail in on the back. So your last few loops and that tail to the back, that means you've now done the first zigzag. Now we're going to come back here and start the second one. Just thought I would show you what the entire thing looks like before continuing. You can see you've got 5 valleys in your zigzags, and you've got 5 mountain tops, let me call them that, on your zigzags. And now we're going to do the same but in reverse order, and then we get the lovely diamonds. To make the second half of the separator, again I've got a Katona thread, and we're going to start in line with where we started the first one. So again between stitch 3 and 4, this line, and this time we're going to start in row 2. The yellow here is row 1. See, that's row 1 there, and I want to go 1 position up, so that's this one here. That's between stitches 3 and 4. To make life easy for you, you just check where you started that one and then come down to row 2. Pick up your yarn from the back. And there we go. And you want to make sure to keep your stonewash thread well clear of your Katona stitches, because otherwise you're going to have to either undo those slip stitches or cut the stonewash if you've got everything snagged together to the back. Now we're going to come up working a diagonal, exactly the same way as we've done this first one here. So this is where we're currently in. So 1 position up, 1 position across, insert your hook, grab the red yarn from the back and bring to the front. This loop is still very big. I'm just going to close that at the end by pulling on my initial tail. That will get my tension right for that stitch. Then again the second one. 1 stitch up, 1 stitch across, and now you're actually going to cross over the diagonal we've already made. So you can see you're going 1 over, and you're just going to go on the other side here. Pick up a loop. You're going to cross over and work over the diagonal you already have. And again, once over, once across, 3, and then once more, once up, once across, and there we go, trying to catch that red yarn. It is kind of a bit of a blind poking, try to find this yarn to the back. So now I've made these 4 stitches. What you want to double check at this point is that you're in line with the valley here. That's the line you should have there. And that you should be in line with the top of these stitches here. That's a double check for you. This line has to be the same, and that line has to be the same. So if you either skew here or you're not high enough, just quickly undo and start this line again, because if this line is right, everything else will automatically also be right. Now we can come back down and start the first full triangle to make the first diamond. So come down and across, pick up the red yarn. Now you see, and see what I've done now? See, I've also got a stonewash thread on there, so that means I'm going to undo this, and I've got my see, I had my stonewash thread there. You don't want that, because then it's going to get all snagged, so be wary of that thread. So again, come down, come across, pick up only the Katona this time, yes, that's right, and pull through. Again, come down and across, trying to find that Katona thread, and there you go, pull through. and once more. And with this third one you're going to cross the diagonal you have below here. So one down, one across, and make a slip stitch. That's, if I can find the red yarn, there we go. Make a slip stitch covering the diagonal you have below it. There we go. And one more. One down, one across. And it is really poking for that Katona yarn here to the back, because I am kind of blindly fishing for it. And again, one down, one across. And there we go. And where is it? There it is. There you go. At this point, again, a double check that you're on row 1. You see these two have to be on the same level, and check that you're in line with this stitch above here. Otherwise your angle here is most probably not wrong. You most probably went one too far this way or that way. That's a double check for you. Now we're going to come back up again. So again, I'm going to do exactly the same, making sure to leave your stonewashed yarn well out of the way. Going to come back up. So that's up one, one to the side. And I know this is slow going, but it is worth it. And to the side. And once you get the hang of this, it'll go faster. But don't go unnecessarily fast. Just watch your tension. That's the most important thing here. You want all these loops to be the same size. It'll give you the most beautiful result. And now again, one up, one across. And that's again going to mean with slip stitch number 3, you always cross over the diagonal with the third slip stitch. Again, one up and across. This is number 4. And then one up and one across. And this is number 5. And now you can really see the first few diamonds have taken shape, these two. So again, double check your lines, that all your lines are correct. Here also you should again be in line with this stitch here. You see that is, so everything is still going according to plan. So I've now worked this zigzag here, going to work one here, 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 and I'll see you again at this point here. So when you're here at the bottom, just for that last few stitches. So this part here, continue making a few more of those. Almost to the end of the separator. I'm currently in the point here at the bottom in row 1, and I still need to do that last diagonal upward. Just find the correct thread, because this is also from the previous diagonal here on the separator. So I still need to go the last one, so it's one position up, one position across, pick up your thread and pull through. One up, and am I going correct here? One up, one across. I've got the feeling that something isn't right here. I'm just going to do this one again. Let me just check that. This is the, yeah, you see I went up 2 stitches. I should have gone into this position, but I went into that position. The reason why I had a feeling that there was something wrong, because stitch number 2 brought me on the diagonal, and that's wrong, because only stitch number 3 and it brings you over the diagonal. So I'm currently in this position, I need to go there, and I went there, so that was wrong. So again, so if you catch your mistakes early, that makes life easier for you. And don't stress if you make a mistake, just take the stitches out and do them again. You'll be happy that you did, because the separator is very visible on your end result, and if this thing is all skew, it's just not gonna look nice. Number 3, See, the third one brings you over the diagonal. That's always a checkpoint for you, that third one. And then loop number 4, slip stitch number 4 is the last one. There you go. And if everything went right, you're now again lined up with this first one, or actually the last one I should say, here at the bottom. That should be in one line there. You can cut your yarn, which I've already done, and open up. I'm going to pull this to the back again. I'm quickly going to do it with a needle so I can get it in exactly the right place. At a certain point you're going to have experience enough and you'll hook this from the back with your hook. So in that same place where the yarn comes out, so I'm going to push it back in. And you see this last loop there, it's just formed nicely. The 2 threads here, work them in, and then your separator is all done. You can see the beautiful diamonds that we've made here. At this point we're ready for the next phase, which is to make embroidery stitches here at the top, especially cross stitch stitches. The last part of the pattern for this week consists of making cross stitches on the double crochets that we've crocheted before. That's the pattern here that I've already started. We're going to continue and finish on this side. What you see here are all cross stitches and that are worked according to a pattern that you'll find in the description for this week, so according to this pattern. So let me just walk you through what's happening here. What you see here is that on certain positions there's a little cross made with Katona yarn, and how this cross is made is that every double crochet stitch has 4 corners. These corners are basically the spaces between the stitches, and these spaces we're going to use to make these cross stitches. Now, each corner, so you've got these 4 corners around the stitch here on the pattern, coincides with those points there, those corner points. So one little colored square coincides with a cross stitch here that's been made on the pattern. If there's nothing on the pattern here, so for example these empty blocks, that means you don't do anything there. So these are all the double crochet stitches, and all these colors here, these colored blocks, refer to Katona cross stitches. The colors, the letters refer to which color to use from your kit, so make sure that you're using the correct color at the correct place. I'm using the rainbow kit, so for me this here, for example, is a green, and this is a blue, and that's a bit of a purple color. So make sure you're using the right color. So every little square here coincides with a cross on the pattern, and the position where we make them are between these little points there. That's how we're going to make our crosses. What's very important when doing embroidery work, especially cross stitches, is that all the legs of all the crosses are oriented in the same way. You can do this in one of 2 ways. You have a top diagonal and a bottom diagonal. You can either do it in this way or the other way around, that way. Doesn't matter which one you do, as long as you do them all consistently in the same way. See here, I always have this one here, this diagonal, I always have on top. So I always have them this way around. So don't do some this, some that way. That will give you a very uneven effect. So this is a very important point to pay attention to when you're doing cross stitches. A measure for quality, if you want to know whether or not you're doing things neatly enough, so look to the back of your work. The back should be, you should be able to see the same pattern as that you see on the front. Of course, not as neat, that's not the idea, but you should be able to recognize the pattern. That's a measure for how neat you've been working. So if you want to check your work, also check the back. It's always very interesting to see. What I'm going to be doing is I'm going to show you how to work these cross stitches according to the pattern. I've already done the bit of the left side here, but I'm going to start as though I'm starting afresh, so take you step by step. We'll start here on the right hand side, and then when everything goes right, of course they'll meet up here in the middle and everything will be fine. I'm going to start with you here on the right hand side. We're going to start the embroidery in line with the separator that we've made. Usually when you do embroidery, you'll start at the center of a pattern. So you would say, for example, start here at the center of this motif. However, what I've noticed for this pattern, that it's very easy to make a mistake and not have it at the right position. Then everything is one too far to the left or too far to the right. So to prevent that type of mistakes, I'm actually going to start at the edge of the pattern and then work my way inwards. And then of course, if everything went correct, it'll match up with what I've already done. Now let's take a look at where we are. You have here the separator with 3 stitches next to it. This line here, the separator, if you look here, you see there's a separator with 3 stitches next to it. This line here you can draw upwards. Well, it's not exactly a line, but you see here also 3 empty stitches, and that means these green stitches here need to line up with the separator, and that we're going to actually use to get the correct position. Because where I want to start my work is this little square here, that E. That's going to be my first cross. Now, to determine that top right hand corner, I know that this here is row 8. The reason I know that is that the first 7 rows are the separator. So this bottom here is row 7, then that's row 8. So I'm first going to find row 8 and then take it from there. Look at your work. You see here in the yellow, this is row 1. We mark that. Okay, so that's 1. Then we can count up 2, 3. This here is 4. That's 5. That's correct, because that's also where the separator started. So that's correct. That's 5. Then go up a bit more. 5, 6, 7, 8. That there is row 8. I'm just going to put my crochet hook in there. So this here is row 8 that I'm currently in. So that where my hook is in will be one of these stitches here somewhere. Okay, row 8. But I don't want to start in row 8. I want to start at that point there. So this here is 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That corner there is at row 12. So I need to go up a few more rows. So if this here was 8, this will be 9, 10, 11, 12. This row here is row 12. This is where I need to start in this row. Now to find the column I need to start in, I'm going to look at the separator and then just draw that line upwards. That means this stitch here, where my hook is currently in, the starting point, that's going to be my starting point. Okay, I'll show you again in a moment, just to double check. But that point is my starting point. Just turn my work to the back and attach my yarn. I'll show you how I do it. If you want to do it in a different way, that's of course also just fine. I'm going to just thread through a few stitches here to the back. You want to make sure you don't see this from the front, so don't go too deep. It's going to thread through here. And I'm going to do 2 things. First of all, I'm not going to pull this completely in. I'm going to leave just a little tip there. The reason is that when you use your shawl and it starts to work, there's just a little bit of space that this can go inwards. So it'll help to keep it off from unraveling. Then what I'm also going to do is I'm going to just take one more loop close to where I've just finished. And this extra loop is also to secure the yarn just a little bit better, so that it doesn't come undone so easily. And now I'm ready to start. I'm just going to push my needle through where the crochet hook is at the moment. So that's going to be that stitch there. Now let me just check from the front that it is in the right starting position, because if you start at the wrong place, then everything's going to be offset. So the first stitch, that's the most important one. Now let's just double check. You should be in line with the separator. So I can just bring this down. Yes, I'm in line with the separator. That's correct. I should be at row number 12. Now I know this is 5, so I'm just going to count up 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Yes, I'm at the right position, both the horizontal and the vertical position. So both positions. That's correct. So this point where my yarn is coming out coincides with that point there on the graph. Okay, so this little square here, I'm going to do that now. That means I'm going to come down, just come down, and then work the second diagonal over it. But you want to make sure, and that I've actually just now done wrong, is that you do not snag the stone washed yarn. I'm just going to push this back, because you can see I have actually just snagged the stone washed yarn. So let me just undo this, get myself untwisted here. So this thread, the stone wash thread, you really want to keep clear of that you don't have it all connected to your work in all the wrong places. So keep clear of the stone washed thread, because you're going to need that again for the next part. And there I have now worked from corner to corner. First that bottom diagonal and then the top diagonal. And this little stitch, that one there, is exactly this one here. That one. Now I'm going to work this stitch here to the bottom. I'm going to work that one. And I know it's at offset on the diagonal. And from here everything is relative to this first stitch. That's why if this first one's incorrect, everything's incorrect. So this first one, pay extra attention to that. And then it is just following the pattern. What you notice that I do now is here I work the second diagonal from the bottom to the top. Now I'm working, sorry, from the top to the bottom, I mean. Now the second one I'm working from the bottom to the top, as you can see there. To my experience, it makes no difference which way around you do this. As what is important is that you always have the same one, the same diagonal on the top and the same one at the bottom. But it doesn't matter whether you work from bottom downwards or the other way around. That makes no difference. I'm now going to continue here. So I've worked these two stitches. That's these two. Now I'm going to work this one here. And because I want to go upwards in the pattern, that's also the reason why I worked from the bottom to the top. So I've only got a small distance here at the back that my thread needs to travel. If I would have stopped here, I would have had a much longer distance to travel upwards. Now, if you can't follow all of that, don't worry too much, but this is a way that I make sure that my yarn to the back needs to travel as short a distance as possible between stitches. So it also helps to keep your work neat. So then this is the next square, next cross stitch. And there are 3 on top of one another. So this is the second one. And I'm also going to do the third one. And that third one, I'm again going to work from the bottom here to the top. And the reason is again because the stitch afterwards is that stitch there. and I want to start in that top corner there. That's the reason why I'm working from the bottom to the top on this stitch, so that again I have as small as possible area that I need to travel for the yarn at the back of my work. And that's the next stitch. When you're working these cross stitches, keep the tension on your yarn reasonably loose. You want to give these stitches room to breathe. What you don't want to do is pull this too tight. So see what happens. I'm now going to pull this yarn very tight. See what happens here? You're pulling this entire stitch inwards and you're misforming your fabric. So make sure to give these stitches the room, because even the second last stitch, they've all been kind of affected. So give these stitches room that they really can lie on top of your fabric and don't fall into the fabric. So these stitches I've worked here are these there. So I'm now finished with this one. I'm currently in that position. So now I'm going to go here and work this one. My route that I'm going to travel is I'm going to go like this, work only that one, then come up, cross over, come down, work all of these here, and then come down. Then go here and work that one. You could also, when you come here, go up and go there and come around. That's of course also a possibility. I'm just going to work these a little bit later, I think. The exact route you take and which order you work these stitches is not critical. What is important is that they're all at the right position. So I'm going to work 1 or 2 more stitches with you, and then I'm going to make a jump in the video to the point where I've already done all the green stitches, so then I can show you how I cast off and attach a new color yarn. This one here is going to be my last stitch for the moment. So continue and work all of these stitches, and also be mindful of what your work looks like at the back. You want this to be neat and have your stitches here to the back as short as possible. I'm going to continue, make a jump in the video until I've completed as many of these green stitches as I can with the length of thread that I have. I'm almost come to the end of the thread. See, my green is almost finished. I'm just going to work this away now because I'm just not going to be able to do all the stitches with the one thread. I'm going to need a second one for that. Let me just work this last cross stitch there. Now from the back I'm just going to work away my yarn, not to snag the stonewash of course. I'm just going to work in a few stitches here to the back. Be sure to not punch it too deep that you don't see it from the front. But luckily the stonewash is thick enough so the chance that you'll see it from the front is reasonably slim. There we go. And I'm just going to work back on that also. This is just to keep it from unraveling when you're wearing the shawl, because you don't want that happening. There you go. Can cut this off. Just do that. Let's cut this off. And now looking at the front where we are, you can see what we've done so far. What I'm now going to do is going to start working these blue stitches, so similar to these ones here. Because I've got these 3 stitches here are those 3 stitches there. I can use that as a perfect orientation point to do these light blue ones. So that's how you can see how one stitch helps you to make the next, and that's why it's important that the first stitch is correct. So I'm now going to work these light blue stitches. I now have a new thread on my needle. For me this is a blue thread that coincides with color F in the pattern. If you have a different kit you'll have a different color, so just check that you have the correct color. I'm going to start in this top little stitch there, specifically that corner point there, the top right hand corner. I'm going to use these 3 stitches here as a reference point. this point is of course an arbitrary starting point. You can just as easily start anywhere here or here, it doesn't matter. It's a point that's easily referenced to something that you already have. That's how you want to continue from one color to the next and from one stitch to the next, all relative to stitches you already have. So to do this first stitch, I'm going to attach my yarn again. I'm going to show you once more. It's all very similar to the last time. That's my starting point. I'll show you again in a moment. I'm just going to attach my yarn here to the back, exactly the same way as before. Pull through and leave a small tail. That's for room to move when you're wearing your shawl. I'm just going to give it one small loop again. That's just to help it keep it all in place. It doesn't come undone so easily. The starting point is there. Sorry, there. What you see here, this is the last stitch worked. And on the next position you need to skip one stitch, and that is that top right hand corner. So where my yarn is currently at is that, that point there. That's where I'm currently at. So now I'm going to work downwards again. That's one there, and that's the next one. And again, make sure every time that you have the same leg up top or at the bottom. My next stitch will be here to the bottom, and I'm going to work 3 stitches with you, 3 or 4, just see how we go. Second, and again I'm just following according to the pattern, 1 stitch to the next. Still be sure to keep clear of your stone wash thread, you don't want to snag that. And then another one. There we go. And I've now worked 3 stitches. It's going to be my last stitch with you. And then these 3 stitches in the pattern are the same as these 3 here. And I'm going to continue work these and then maybe come around this way or that way, I don't know yet. You know, just it doesn't really matter which way you work these stitches, just make them all at the correct position. So I'm going to continue and do all my embroidery stitches, and then we can take a look at what we've done. And when you're all done, you've done all the embroidery, this is what your work looks like at this point. What you can do now is the yellow thread that I have in here to mark row 1. I can pull this out because I don't need it anymore. I'm actually going to use this again for part 3, when we'll be doing something similar again with making double crochets and marking rows. So I'm going to be using this again. This brings us to the end of this instruction video. I want to thank you for watching, and I hope to see you again next time.